All right, we're not going to waste any more time, so I'm going to be really, really quick because time is precious and it's ticking. I would like to welcome Mr. Liu Chuan-Hong, CE of IMDA, as one of two co-hosts to welcome Sam to the stage. Mr. Liu leads the development of Singapore's digital economy and digital society, and in so doing, he actually wears three hats. One, as an economic developer, to support lots of supporting the startups, as well as helping companies harness digital tech. Also as an innovative regulator, overseeing the infrastructure and data. So that was kind of like the digital connectivity blueprint we announced last week, as well as the role of a social leveler, championing digital inclusion. Without further ado, Mr. Liu.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, and many friends that I see in the audience from both the industry as well as the developer community. Again, a very warm welcome. I'm very glad that all of you could join us here this afternoon. Generative AI, I think, has really burst on the scene in a very short period of time. Many of us who have used it, I think, have this deep sense that perhaps we're on the cusp of something quite revolutionary. And if you take a step back, the original paper, which was called Attention is All You Need, actually came out only in 2017. And that introduced a novel architecture called Transformers, which is actually the T in GPT. And then actually in very, very short succession, you saw GPT 1, 2, 3, 3.5. But it was really the launch of the product, ChatGPT, I think it was late last year, that really took the world by storm. Most of us who used it were just completely amazed at its capabilities. And I think the proof in the pudding is that it reached 100 million users in just 2 months. And if you compare that to the previous record holder, which was, I think, TikTok took 9 months, and Instagram took 30 months. And therefore, I think we're really, really very happy today to have the people who are responsible for this huge change and technological leap, which is OpenAI, and of course, CEO Sam Altman here with us this afternoon. And they haven't stopped. I think OpenAI is pushing the boundaries, GPT-4 and onwards, building out the platform, the plugins. One of my personal favorites is actually Code Interpreter, because it completely changes the way you look at data and how you actually use it. Sam is not just the leader of OpenAI, he's actually a prolific investor. He started Hydrazine Capital, which invested in early stage startups, as well as also was Y Combinator, YC, as most of us know it, which is really an accelerator that funded a lot of the next wave of startups that we're familiar with. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to my good friend, Dr. Leslie Teo. He's head of AI products at AISG. And AI Singapore is really that entity that was set up in 2017 to pull deep expertise around AI together from all our research institutions, as well as to grow the overall AI ecosystem. And Leslie will be joining Sam up here on stage for that conversation. So I think we're all looking forward to a very interesting and insightful fireside chat. And I encourage all of you to ask Sam very difficult questions. And once again, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Sam as well as Leslie. Come.
Thank you, Chuan-Hong. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Welcome, Singapore. Some housekeeping notes. This is the system message, I guess, in lingo. We'll do a 50-minute conversation with you, Sam. I am doing the prompt engineering part to set the right context. And then after that, we'll invite a special guest, Rachel Lim, who is a Singaporean working in OpenAI, to join us. And we will open up for questions from the audience. So anyway, this is sold out, right? We had 1,400 plus in 8 hours. This is not the full audience. There's an overflow room. So we are all happy that you're here, appreciate that you made Singapore a stop in your world tour. Many of us are avid users of ChatGPT, but not many maybe have read or heard directly about OpenAI. So Sam, can you tell us a little bit about the mission, the founding principles, your journey so far, and the future you wish to create?
Sure. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for having me here. We've been on this trip around the world now for a little bit more than 4 weeks, and it has been amazing to get to see what's happening in the world, the sort of level of excitement about AI, thoughtfulness about the incredible benefits, the risk we've got to mitigate. And it's been a very eye-opening experience. And Singapore's a special stop for us. It's been very cool to see what the Singaporean government's been doing with AI, what people here are doing. And this is really kind of why we started the company. We started because we believed that AGI, if it could be achieved, and at the time we weren't sure if it could be at all, but if it could be achieved, would be the most transformative technology humans have yet developed. And now I think we believe it can be developed. We'll see how far it can go. But I think we are at the beginning of something that is going to be quite a profound shift to the world. And so we tried to create an effort that can help bring that benefit, share it very widely, and figure out how to mitigate the risks that could come with it. When we started, we worked on systems that played games, and we had this like robotic hand that could do a Rubik's Cube and a bunch of other projects too. And as we sort of stumbled through the wilderness, at some point we got to this idea of language models. And when we didn't even quite know what we had at the time, but it turns out we've been able to push that very, very far. And we now think that'll be an element of the path that builds towards AGI. So our goal is to figure out how to do that, deploy it iteratively to the world, figure out how to make it safe and aligned, share these incredible benefits. And I really think it will lead to a transformation of the whole economy and all of society in a very positive way.
Thanks. 20 cities so far.
20 countries, more cities.
Anything you can share with us that has struck you on this trip?
Yeah, we're sort of getting near the end of the trip, so I've been reflecting a lot on what I've observed. One thing is, part of the reason we wanted to do this was to get out of the Silicon Valley bubble. We kind of hear the same things again and again from the same people, and I really wanted to just go listen to people with different perspectives. One of the surprises has been there's many ways in which I was right about that, and many ways in which I think my assumption was totally wrong. Honestly, when we started planning this trip, we were like a little bit like, are people outside of SF even going to care enough? Like, are they even going to like want to meet with us? Are they even going to like be really working on AI? And that was wrong. I think around the whole world, people not only really care, but are doing work at the same level of sophistication as San Francisco. And the policy conversations and thinking about what happens as we build towards AGI and beyond are unbelievably sophisticated and thoughtful. And that has been it's really like, that's been a big update for us. The things that people care about are different than what people care about in SF, like you'd expect, and that's also been interesting to see. But kind of the shared global desire to get AI right, meaning both that we all get to enjoy like the tremendous benefits of what this can deliver, and also mitigate the substantial like global risks. That's been a great takeaway. In fact, we've met with like many governments around the world. To us, every country, people are interested in coming together and figuring out how we address this very difficult challenge of global governance for these powerful systems.
So you, on that note, so you met with the Prime Minister this morning.
We did.
You also met with the Deputy Prime Minister. Anything you can share with us?
Sure.
Are you opening an office in Singapore?
We don't have current plans for that. They were such great conversations. I like the technical depth that the Prime Minister immediately went to. Like really like impressive questions. The whole team was looking around being like, we got to think about that one for a second. That's a great question. But talking about the magnitude of what this is going to do to the world, how as these systems get, as smart and smarter than humans, we're going to think about doing that, the challenges of coordinating global policy, but also the tremendous benefits, making sure that Singapore benefits from what can happen here economically, socially, education, healthcare, all these different areas. And then kind of the contours of the of the inputs that these systems need to be very successful.
Right. I'm sure the issue of benefits, economic impact, risks will come up in later on. I just want to hone in on double click on one thing you've been saying. Actually, you've been saying it for a while. These models, exponential change, right?
Yeah.
Impact, great, because it's generalizable. You and your team are laying the foundation for AGI as you wanted to. I know it's hard to predict, but the next 5 years, if you could, what would be the direction you want to push this in?
Yeah, I mean, like, we did kind of get to play a role in launching the revolution. It's now all of humanity is going to take it forward, so we'll try to influence it, but it won't be totally up to us, as it shouldn't be, of course. What I hope, though, is that these are tools that increase individual human will. And I think we're seeing that now. I was never excited about the direction of AI, where it was like there's going to be this like thing, and it's sort of creature-like and has all like it just makes all the decisions, and we hope for the best. And I sort of at one point thought or worried that was going to happen. It now looks much more like we can build these tools that just enhance our ability to create, to do things, to generate new knowledge. We just have sort of like a lot more AI talent join society and contribute to the sort of infrastructure that we all share that lets us do things. And that is where I hope things go. So it's like the world is on this trajectory that it was going to be on. It happens faster. Everything gets better. The kinds of things we do will evolve over time, but we're still like the unfolding human story is like the main event.
A bit more narrow now. So it looks like it's a disruptive innovation. This is not evolutionary, I guess, in the Clay Christensen mindset. Again, hard to predict the future. We would never have predicted that advertising and gaming is financing this round of AI. But what are the winners? What are the values or the attributes that you might think of as the winners?
I mean, productivity is going to increase so much. It'll be different in different areas. Computer programmers can now maybe be 2 or 3 times more efficient than they could before. At some point, they'll be able to be 20 or 30 times more efficient. And then by the time it's 200 or 300 times more efficient, then it's like a qualitatively different thing. And we'll see this for other industries too. It won't be sort of like spread, the same everywhere. But when these things that have become hard become easier and people can do more, it's not that like the expectations go up and also the ability goes up. And it's not like we say, now we only need 1/300th as many coders. We're seeing that there was just a huge surplus demand in the world for good code to be written. Same thing for education, same thing for science, same thing for writing. People will just do better stuff. This has been the long trajectory of giving humans better tools as the technological revolution has gone on. Think about what we all do today. And think about how much we owe to all of the people that came before us and the technology and the tools they created that built up the tech tree of humanity and where we'd be without that. And think about what happens if the rate of that just really increases. We'll do better stuff. We'll create more. We will do entirely new things that are difficult to imagine. When you had to program computers with punch cards, there was like a limit to the sophistication of a program you could do, given the time it took and what you could keep in your head. Then we got to like lower level languages and higher level languages, and people started doing amazing stuff. We got to sophisticated enough languages and also powerful enough computers that we could make a little AI and then bigger AI and then bigger and bigger. And when we have that, now you can like make a program, sometimes a little one, just by saying what you want in English. When you can make sophisticated programs that way, a whole new landscape opens up of what people will create.
So,
like one version of this, maybe to think about it, is if every person is running a company of 1,000 really competent individuals, the equivalent of that, a lot of stuff can happen.
Yep. So the example given to me is, basically I have 30 great coders now working for me, and I can be much more productive, right?
Or you could have 30,000.
Yep. Power, generality, issues of representation, diversity, equity. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the way that we democratize the values that we put into these systems, what we align it to, this is like hugely important and getting more important. We've launched some recent grants. We have some of our own ideas, but we really want to learn, like, you know, how do we, like, we really want to figure out how to learn the collective preferences of humanity, figure out how we want to agree on where we draw the very broad limits of these systems, where we set the defaults, how much power we give people to configure inside of that. And then also questions like, how are we going to make governance decisions over what these systems can be used for and not used for? How are we going to share access to them democratically? I think these will be some of the most hotly debated issues of our time.
So we're in Southeast Asia. Maybe we can double click on representation. It's a word we use, right? But for yourself, because you've been very thoughtful about this, what is it that what do we mean, or what is your concern about representation? If you share yours, I can share mine, but, you know.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody's values and everybody's preferences are reflected in these systems. Everybody's culture, history, language, hopes for the future, ability to do things. People will choose to use these in different ways, and there are some places where we have to come to global consensus, some very limited ways. Different countries will have different sort of rules and standards, different people will certainly too, but it should kind of all be in there. We should all sort of like imbue our beliefs and morals in these systems, and then it can evolve over time. Like, obviously, human society makes a lot of moral progress, but I kind of think we all deserve that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Well, thanks, Sam. Time is short, so let me invite Rachel up to stage. So Rachel Lim is a Singaporean working in OpenAI. And we're going to open up for questions from the audience. Very important. Sam wants to hear from the audience. Just like writing good prompts, please introduce yourself to set the right context. Please be clear, and please be concise. Ushers will have the mics.
Hi, I'm Chris from Sentient. I'm a startup in Singapore. I've got a question about GPT-10.
That's going to be something.
Yeah, so the trajectory to GPT-10, are you looking at having more and more data but smaller and smaller parameters, like from 175 to 40 billion? Or are you looking at more having images and videos being handled by GPT?
We'll certainly have things like images and videos in there by GPT-10. The parameter count, you know, that's like a little bit of an open research question. I sort of think it's the wrong thing to focus on. Like, what we care about is that each time we cut a GPT number, it's dramatically better. It's not, you know, we're not sort of like focused on, like, it's got to be this number of parameters. We want it to be smarter. We want it to be more useful. But by the time of GPT-10, like, that's going to be a wild thing. Like, I hope that should be something that can, like, help contribute new knowledge.
Right, thanks.
Hi, Zeb. And hi, Rachel. Nice to see you again. My name is Dennis, and I'm a founder of a brand new platform called AI for Creatives, literally aiforcreatives.com. And the idea is that we're trying to help creatives adapt to the changes that are happening in their industries. I would like you to sort of comment on one of the founding beliefs for that platform, which is that reskilling and upskilling are really bad models for helping people to adapt to the change. Because as you said before, the arc of technology is moving towards simplicity. So instead of like specializing, you can just talk to the AI and the AI will do whatever you want it to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you know, instead of upskilling or reskilling, we should be focusing on reorientating people. In other words, helping them understand the surroundings, the changes that are taking place, and guiding them towards the easy-to-use AI systems to get what they want. Love to hear your thoughts on that. And nice to see you again, Rachel.
What do you think, Rachel?
I'm not sure about reskilling and upskilling specifically. I do think the most valuable skill, in my opinion, and the skill that will be most useful is the meta skill to be able to learn new skills. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to by orientation, but that feels like it's increasingly important as stuff changes quickly.
I totally agree, and for what it's worth, I think that's a teachable skill. like one of the things I learned doing YC is that you can actually make people more resilient, comfortable with faster change, better at learning new things quickly. And it's not that hard. It's just not something that our education system usually prioritizes, but it's totally doable.
Hey Sam, my name is Alex Farsif. I'm founder of ad tech startup in the advertising space. And we using OpenAI tech quite heavily for the last 3 years. So the platform is for marketers to run ads better and to monitor their competitors better. And once the ChatGPT and GPT-4 came out, it has opened us quite a bit of doors that were not open before, particularly in summarizing data, because we all know that GPT 3.5 and ChatGPT are pretty much the same thing, but what is really different is a human interface. So that's what we are also building, a human interface for marketers to just get it in 1 minute instead of like studying the plots and stuff. So now I look at the startups that you guys have invested in OpenAI VC, and I see that at least 3 of them out of 4, they look like that the similar application is like making a very easy interaction of a human with the systems. Is that the most interesting and high potential application of what you guys are building? And also, what is the opportunity window for the AI startups to utilize OpenAI?
I don't know if it's the most interesting application of what we're building, but I think it is like a necessary one. I am a huge believer that with each new technology, you have to figure out the new interface. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but we started with punch cards. That was a very hard way to use a computer. Command line still pretty hard. The graphical user interface, much better. Most people could do that. Touch, big step forward again. But natural language, even easier. Kind of everybody knows how to do that. And there's immense power contained in that model. And so it can probably go further. Like there's probably more, now that computers can like understand, for lack of a better word, there's probably much more that you can do. But part of why ChatGPT was such a step forward, like we'd had the pretty good models for a long time, but it was the interface. And so startups that are doing more to explore in this space, it can't just be an interface. It's also got to add some value and do something useful. That seems like it's going to be a big deal. And the opportunity for startups, I think, is every time there's a shift in computing and also a shift in like a distribution method, both of which ChatGPT and these kind of models provide, there's like an opportunity to build a lot of new stuff. The best startups like tend to cluster starting or scaling right after a new technological shift. So there should be a lot now.
Hi. Hi, Sam, Rachel. Thanks very much for your time. My name is Kelvin. I am not a founder. I am a practicing lawyer. So my interests are actually in the laws and the regulations. And my question for today relates to safety and related regulations. Sam, you shared in several forums about OpenAI's approach to safety, which is appreciated. But I think we all agree in this room that despite best efforts, there would always be an impossibility of completely eliminating inaccurate or even harmful content. So I suppose my question now is this. Given that the genie, that is ChatGPT, has already been unleashed into the world, and this is a slightly controversial part of my question, is the thinking that any harm that may be caused by the unleashing of these models is necessary collateral damage and that the benefits outweigh the detriments? Or is this the Uber model? Let's get 1 million users, 10 million users, 100 million users, and then we get friendly legislation into place? Or is there perhaps any room for reflection on how ChatGPT was rolled out and whether it could have been done differently?
You want to go first or you want me to go first? I'll go first. Of course there's reflection. I mean, we talk all the time about this. I think at the current scale of these models, the harms are manageable. We want to minimize them as much as possible, but we realize that no matter how much testing and red teaming and auditing and external engagement and safety sort of evaluating we do, people will use things in ways that we didn't think about. And that is the case with any new technology. So it's not that the upside justifies the downside, even if like we think there are like orders of magnitude more good than bad, which we do. It doesn't excuse us from having to mitigate the bad. It's that you can't learn everything in a lab. So you spend a ton of time making the safest, most aligned, most beneficial model you can. With GPT-4, it took us 8 months after we finished training before we released it to get that done. And then you put it out and you find that some of the things that you were worried about actually aren't a problem and they're stopping good use cases. And people are misusing it in a way that maybe you didn't predict or maybe you couldn't have predicted because it was like society and the technology co-evolved together. And you run a very tight feedback loop. But we really believe that iterative deployment is the only way to do this, because if you don't deploy along the way and you just go build an AGI in secret in a lab and then you drop it on the world all at once, society doesn't get that time to co-evolve, doesn't get the opportunity to say, actually we have a different vision for where this should go and where's our voice. Like the fact that the world is having this conversation now, well before we get to AGI, I think is really important, and it wouldn't have happened, or at least it wouldn't have been very effective without us deploying. So technology's got to have contact with reality, otherwise you end up with some very strange things.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Sud, CEO and co-founder of Impress AI. We use AI to automate recruiting processes at large enterprises. So my question to Sam, just setting context, I read an article recently in Washington Post, I think it was, that some people in marketing, content creators who've lost their job to ChatGPT because certain companies are using content creation services using ChatGPT. They have been picking up skills that would be considered blue collar in the past. For example, repair works, plumbing, or repairing ventilation systems. So that just got me thinking, as countries and professionals think about their future, should we be thinking about becoming more generalist in our skills, picking up more skills just to hedge? Or should we be going deeper and pursuing a PhD before we go out in the world?
I think both paths sound viable to me. It's about being able to adapt with the circumstances and kind of roll with the punches, adapt. The nature of your job will change in the future, probably. There will still be something interesting and meaningful for you to do.
I'm not confident in this answer, but certainly for me, the thing that has always worked is having very broad knowledge that's very shallow, and then in a couple of areas that I'm particularly interested in, having deep knowledge and then figuring out what I can do at the intersection of that. But I think going forward, to Rachel's earlier point, it's probably going to be about the meta skill of learning new things fast. And it's, people always want to predict. We get asked all the time, what are the exact skills that are going to matter? And we're like, we don't know. But given how fast things are going, this sort of ability to react quickly seems super important.
Quick follow-up, just one. Just to dig a little bit deeper, as we think about the path towards AGI and many steps towards that, one being, of course, what we have now, I think you've referred to things that you're most excited about already. For example, productivity. What are the things that scare you the most?
Definitely any version of the future where humans are not in control of what's happening, even indirectly, where we kind of get too trusting of the systems too quickly and aren't really keeping a tight loop on what's happening. That seems scary.
Hi.
Sorry.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for coming to Singapore. My name is Kisan. I'm the co-founder of Mindverse AI. We are a Singapore-based AI company that's built upon GPT. And our product, MindOS, tries to allow apps to build language-based UI in the form of AI agents. So as we empower apps to build language-based UI, we realized that, on one hand, AI is making it easier for apps to build itself, for everyone to build apps or to build software. But on the other hand, one of the distinctions amongst all apps, designs, GUI or even like data is becoming less obvious right now because every app has got LUI to help everyone navigate. So from your point of view, are apps landscape going to be more centralized or decentralized? And sorry about the long prompt. That's my question one. This question has got a lot of tokens. My question two is, since now you have toured around the world, what are some of the most interesting ideas you've heard people talking about with GPT?
You want to take the first? I'll take the second.
Are apps going to be more centralized or decentralized? I don't know. I hope that people will be more creative and use these tools to build more and more different things, and that we will see an explosion of things that are possible. And I don't know, like walking through life will be walking through an art exhibit or something. I think there are lots of beautiful visions where this can create a more diverse experience of life, and that to me is more exciting. In terms of what will actually happen, I'm not as confident.
I would say that we don't know for sure, but I think all of the shapes of this technology are towards decentralization, towards it sort of seeping everywhere. It feels to me like that's what's most likely, and I also hope that's what happened. In terms of traveling around the world, I don't know, the complaints are all, the feature requests for us and the complaints are remarkably consistent, which is a very good sign. I think it means we can go home and we have a list of 20 things to hit and everybody will be really happy. I would say the other is the degree to which people are embracing the upsides of this technology. With world leaders, there's always how are we going to mitigate the major risks here? And with people, there was some of that too. And I know this is self-selected because they're the people that wanted to come talk to us, but the incredible optimism and creativity around the world, I'm going home very optimistic.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Sorry, another follow-up question. So now you've toured around the world for almost a month. Did you build an AI SAM to manage OpenAI while you are touring around the world?
No, I did it late at night on Slack. It was very tiring.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. This is Xu Chun from Monetary Authority of Singapore. I'm heading the AI development from there. MAS is the financial sector regulators. Recently, our banks are very keen on this exciting generative AI technology, and some of the banks told me that they are exploring more than 50 use cases of this technology. But they also have a lot of concern. So now I want to hear from you, what's your suggestion to our banks? How should they leverage on this opportunity or this technology? And also from MAS regulator or government perspective, what's your suggestion to us to promote or better use of this technology? Thank you.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on what your concerns around using the technology are. So for example, I think there are different ways to scope it where you start small and expand to something bigger, right? Start with using it for internal tools, expand it to something that's external facing, consumer facing, where security, data protection, stuff like that becomes more of something you have to consider. I think there are lots of, it really depends on what the main concerns are from your perspective.
It's definitely requires some additional work to use these systems in contexts where you need a lot of rigor and reliability. We're still very early in the life cycle here, and this is not their strong point. They're great at being creative. They're not great at being super robust in every instance. But a lot of people are figuring out how to get them to act that way, although it requires hacks on top of hacks. So my advice would be, look at what people are doing in similar contexts. People are generally quite willing to share their approaches. There's a ton of information on the internet. And then from a regulatory and policy perspective, I would just say understand the limits of the technology before trying to set the policy to make sure that what you want to do is something that's actually possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. Right here. So there's people behind the lines. Hi. My name is Leo. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Huawei Cloud and AI. So we're dealing with a lot of enterprise clients who are growing a lot of interest over GPT. So I have a question around the challenges that we're seeing. There are 3 challenges. Appreciate your thoughts on how you would handle these challenges from OpenAI perspective. So the first thing is, from enterprise perspective, there's a lot of concern around data privacy and control of using GPT type of technology. So the first question is, how would you suggest the enterprise to take on a GPT or generative AI journey with their concern on data privacy and control? The second one is around hallucination problems. How can you guarantee the model provide a good factuality and not having hallucination issues? And the last one is about cost. So the cost of data training and data inferencing, I know like OpenAI never share publicly how much you spend on operation costs and all that. But I think there's a certain concern that it costs a lot of money. So therefore, I would like to see your way or your suggestion around how to reduce the operational cost of GPT for enterprise adoption.
So on the first point, we don't train on API data at all. We've done a bad job of explaining this to people, so we need to do some marketing to help you all, and we will, but we never train on API data. It does not go into the models at all for the reason that you think, and once we explain that to enterprises, they tend to be more comfortable. Hallucinations, we will make continual progress there. It'll get better and better. I think by a year or 2 years from now, it won't be something that we talk about so much. It'll just be like the models will be way, way better at it, and we'll be more focused on other problems. And then on cost, you know, we've cut the inference cost in the last 18 months, I think once by 3x and once by 10x, maybe even a little more than that. And we plan to continue to have big cuts in the future. We have to keep making research breakthroughs to be able to do that. But we want intelligence to be like, we want to drive the cost of intelligence down and down and down. We want to make this stuff so cheap you don't even think about using it.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. Thank you. My name is Helen He, and I'm running my family office in Singapore. We focus on early tech venture investment. My question to you is, as much as you are deeply involved with the continued AI technology development, you are also personally involved with blockchain project, WorldCoin. So I'm curious to learn your perspective on the future opportunity and challenges of the crossroad of these 2 evolving technology. Thank you.
I'm not sure exactly how they'll intersect. I think, you know, one example I would give is as generated content becomes better and better, and we need to know what is generated by a human, I can see a world where if you have like a high stakes message, you cryptographically sign it and put it on the blockchain and say, hey, this was really me. So I could see something like that. I can see other ways where you really want to like verify something at the time that it happens. But it's not, this is not generally like, thinking about the intersection here has not generally been a big focus. I don't know if you have any thoughts. Okay.
Right, I'm Jeremy. I'm leading global tech alliances at ByteDance. So very good to see you today, Sam. We've got about, we really have more than 10,000 people working on machine learning related workloads at ByteDance globally. So I think we're
20 OpenAIs. That's a lot of people.
No. No, we have a pretty wide spread of products, I must say. So yeah, I think we're living at very exciting times. So going back to your question about representing humanity at a global scale, where do you think the biggest challenge is? Especially tweaking between localization and biases, right? I think that's the main question that I want to ask. And of course, just throwing in a plug, I think there's quite a few exciting things that we can do together. So yeah, hope to chat with you later.
We want to figure out how to train on as much diverse content in the world as possible. So we want to get GPT 5, 6, 7, whatever, really good at every language, every dialect, know everyone's history and culture, and go learn the values of everybody. And not only that, no two people are ever going to agree that one system is fully unbiased or like fully right in whatever sense you want to call is right. And so it's important to go learn this as much as we can and get as global democratic input as we can. but it's also really important to just give users much more control.
All right, thanks.
Hey, Sam. Up here, right side. I'm KJ. Nice to meet you. I work at an AI startup by day called Bifrost, but by night, most of my time is spent listening to hip-hop music and producing music as well.
That's cool.
In the past 6 months, we've realized that my favorite artist, Drake, as well as many others, the AI-generated ones have become nearly identical as the good ones. Some cases better than his recent work as well. Personally, I think there's some deep fake version happening in music, not sure is the right term, but the history between the music industry and technology, right from the times of Napster, Spotify, and now generative AI, has been a typically spicy one. You've been speaking a lot about rights of creators and regulation. Would love to learn how you think about the relationship between generative AI music and just in general what that means for us as listeners, artists, producers. Thanks.
So 2 things there. One, I think the music of the future is just going to be way better because artists are going to have better tools. And I think people are missing that because right now they're like, oh, you can make something that's like as good as Drake or whatever. But that's really kind of underselling our potential. The question is, all right, well, that's fine that you can do that, but what can Drake do with this now? And I think that's going to surprise us all on the upside. What I do think we need is a way for the people who are making these systems better or who other people are inspiring, like in the style of, in the whatever of, they need some way to benefit. That's maybe another thing that blockchain could do someday. But there needs to be some way where the benefits of these systems are shared with the people who help them, help create them.
Hi, Sam and Rachel. My name is Rio. I'm a director of Korika, which is AI Indonesia Association. We're excited to host you guys tomorrow in Jakarta. I'm also building, sorry to take because my Singapore team will be, we are switching place, so I'm here. I'm building an AI startup in Singapore. We basically want to build AI solution for market research. So one of the things that we found, me and my co-founder, technical co-founders, is like the consistency of the answers of ChatGPT. So we are building it for the use cases of insight extraction, especially when we gather the data from different kind of language, different kind of profile and segments. Sometimes it's like with the same question being asked twice, it creates a different answer, sometimes slightly, but sometimes completely different. So we want to know actually, do you have any suggestion for our developer how to improve the consistency of this? Because I think that will be crucial before we launch our product to the mass. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think this is kind of an open question. We expect that the models will get better over time. With the current models, there are lots of things you can do. You can combine different answers, put another model on top of it to evaluate which is the better answer. You could create an interface where the user themselves has to pick what the better answer is. And we've seen a lot of great applications built that do that, like Copilot or other things. I think there are generally lots of tricks that you can use to make the models more reliable for your specific use case, and it kind of depends on the use case.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Hey Sam, my name is James. I'm an automation engineer, and I also in my spare time work on Stampy.ai, which is just an open source project. And my question for you is essentially interested in your thoughts on the historical trend of alignment initiatives very quickly shifting towards capabilities. And given that trend, whether we can instead try to leverage capabilities in some way to expedite alignment research so that in the event of something like a fast takeoff, it's baked into the feedback loop.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people get most wrong when they talk about the field is they're like, well, I'm a capabilities person, I'm an alignment person. This is a capabilities technique, this is an alignment technique. The capabilities progress we made is help us do the best alignment research. The best models help us do the best alignment research. And also, most alignment techniques or things that we developed to be alignment techniques also greatly improved the capabilities. So RLHF was originally developed as an alignment technique, but it turns out if you want to have a usable model, you need that. And I think the answer there is deep learning solves all problems. And so the answer to every problem is more deep learning. And thus, there's not a differentiation in the same way that we think. And we've got to just think about the whole system together, capabilities and alignment together. I think, although I'm not confident, I think a fast takeoff is not the most likely scenario. If you sort of think of the 2x2 quadrant of short timelines and long timelines, slow takeoff, fast takeoff, I think we're in the short timeline, slow takeoff world. And I think that's the best, safest possible world. So I think that's all good. if we did get to a fast takeoff world, there's many approaches that we could take, but I can see in that world where it is really important to slow down until we have something that we're more confident in.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Sam and Rachel. My name is Vijay. I'm from NCS, a system integrations company in Singapore. Now, we built a number of applications on Gen AI thanks to OpenAI's APIs, and we've shown it to clients. Every client has the same question, and I'd like to hear your views on it. It's about how do you really validate the output, right, and measure the accuracy of the outcome. It was easier in traditional AI. You had accuracy, recall, and all of these metrics. But how do you do this for unstructured data?
How do you verify the accuracy of the output?
Yeah.
Build evals. You have lots of data that you can use for your evals that are specific to your use case. We also have an open source eval library that we encourage people to contribute to. Evals will help you figure out if it works for your use case.
Yeah, so if you have enough labeled and labeled data, that's possible. If there's not enough labeled data, is there a way of doing it?
You can have the models label data for you?
We're getting to a world where that will be very possible. You know, in the meantime, there's all sorts of There's all sorts of like hacks people have tried. You could talk to our team here after that, and we can maybe come with some ideas for you.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Mei Su from Dell Technologies. I lead the artificial intelligence division in the company globally. And as I begin to work with a lot of use cases in AI in different industries, I'm starting to see the power of AI. And my question is more, because I have 2 little girls, and 40 years later, I don't know how the world is going to look like. And I'd like to know what you think is and will always be the differentiating factor between human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
I think it's hard to say, like, here is the one thing humans can do that machines will never be able to do.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bunch of other things we can observe. Humans seem to really have a great intuition for what other humans want. Humans certainly want to feel useful and creative and valuable to other people. Humans clearly want to contribute back to society. You know, we were talking earlier that we get to benefit from all of the other things people have built that we get to build on top of. But we also, many of us have a desire to contribute something back to that. Humans also really care about what other humans can do. If we think back 40 years ago, you know, work was then beginning on the system, I think, that became Deep Blue. Deep Blue was took a long time, but eventually was the first sort of AI program that I think got like a great deal of attention in the world for beating a human at something at chess. Okay. And I went back and read some articles about that once. Everybody was talking about how, you know, this is the end of chess. If a computer can beat a human at chess, no one is ever going to play the game again. It's done. It's boring. Like, and you know, before that happened, people said this was impossible. Only true general artificial intelligence could do this. And then it happened. We, of course, moved the goalposts like we always did. AI is always the thing that comes in the future. But everybody said, well, chess is over. And of course, what happened is not that at all. Chess has never been more popular than it is today. People have never been better at chess than they are. Chess has also never been more popular to watch than it is today, at least online. I mean, maybe people used to like go to big tournaments, I don't know. But no one is watching 2 AIs play chess against each other. No one cares about that. And like, if people get beaten by an AI, like, it doesn't make them not want to go do their best against other people. So like, we tend to be very focused on what other people do and what they care about and what they want and what we can do for them. And I would bet that doesn't change too much.
Thank you.
Hey, hi Sam, Damien at the back, CTO for Workday, another Silicon Valley company. So we process around 442 billion transactions for HR and people and finance transactions every single year. So we believe the power is in the quality of the data and the problems that you're trying to solve. I'm just really interested now because there does seem to be a bit of a war happening in terms of the regulators. We've got, the European regulators, we've got Singaporean regulators, Australian regulators now, the Senate and other forms of sort of federal governance, all talking about how to govern and how to regulate AI. What do you think the right process is, and who do you believe will win the fight to regulate AI?
I think it's going to be all of the above kind of thing. There's going to be, governments around the world, they'll do some things together, some things separately. Companies will set their own standards, both individually and together. Civil society organizations will come up with their own proposals. And the world will evolve towards what makes the most sense. So people will say, well, in this place they went too far and they're like being punished from an economic growth perspective. In this place, they're like having these harms happen. And we'll all get to like observe the sort of the regulatory marketplace, and we'll get towards the right answer over time.
And how do you think, sorry, a follow-on question, how do you think from an organizational standpoint that when the regulations do hit, what is the right framework that you would recommend organizations to take on to adhere to that? Talk about explainability, transparency, trust, lifecycle management. Is there a good mix that you're recommending from a framework standpoint for organizations to prepare themselves for that regulation?
I think it's still like a pretty open question about the framework that people are going to decide on. You can imagine many ways that this could go, but until we get a little bit more clarity from the major governments about what they're going to do, I'd hesitate to make like a strong recommendation there.
Hi, Sam. Yeah, this is Li Gang from Algo Technologies. We help people design and build responsible AI applications. So right now, the boundaries between the human-generated and AI-generated output begins to blur, and it's even very hard to distinguish both. And there are major implications in the way of how we work and communicate. So example, like a negative implications is the use of these technologies in the areas of scams or frauds, right? So 3 questions. So do you think it is possible, in the future to distinguish the both, human and AI? Do you think we should distinguish the both? And what do you think, from a point of an AI developer, what is the role that AI developers should play in this? Thank you.
Do I think that in the future it will be possible to distinguish human and AI-generated output? I think right now, if you've spent enough time with AI-produced output, you will be able to distinguish between them just based on your intuition. I think your intuition will grow even as the outputs get closer together. And then on top of that, hopefully there will be techniques for figuring it out that's not just based on human intuition, though I don't think we know yet.
I think there will be some cases where people care and some where they don't. And in cases where people care, there will be a lot of ways, because we care, that will verify it. We mentioned the cryptographic signature idea earlier. There will be detectors that'll, kind of work. Your intuition will kind of work too. But I think there may be more cases than people realize where you don't care. So we'll care a lot where we care. It'll be really important if we want it to be important, and we'll have ways to address it. And in others, we won't.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sam, Rachel. My name is Tommaso. I'm the co-founder of Entropica Labs. We work on quantum computing, and we are developing software tools to enable error correction on quantum computers. And my question goes back to what you were saying about making sure that these models are actually available to everyone at each point in time. And the question is really about models being always available. So I believe that today still a small fraction of people globally are actually using machine learning tools at large scale. So do you believe that in the future we can actually have, let's say, 4 or 5 billion people using large AI models at the same time, or is it going to be a problem because we simply don't have enough computing power to do that? Thank you.
It'll be fine. We're going to make models more efficient. We're going to make way more chips. I think this is clearly what the world wants, and the market will deliver. And I think, again, we're so early in this technological curve we have so much still to discover about how to make these models tremendously more efficient. There's still order of magnitude gains to be had.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. Hi, Rachel. I'm Leong from AI Singapore. I just have a question about the test for AGI. During your trip to India, Sam, you said two things, like OpenAI is really about the quest for AGI. Second, when you were questioned what was the, asked what your test for AGI was, you said maybe we can, we can even call this the Altman test. Your response was, go figure out and discover new knowledge and solve a new problem it's never seen before. Figure out if it needs to do complicated planning, study something in particular order, build something, write something, test code. So the theme around these examples is mainly like the idea of creation or original work. Now the Turing test and like the Altman test is like they seem to be a bit opposite because in Turing's 1950 paper, like Computing Machinery and Intelligence, Turing did not believe original work is a sign that a computer can think. Could you provide an explanation why you believe the ability to engage in original work is a crucial metric for AGI?
I don't think I proposed that as an AGI test, but I think it's certainly like a mark of great utility. I think in some sense, like we can argue a lot about the definition of AGI, but if we have something that can go create net new scientific knowledge for the world, no one can argue that's not tremendously valuable. The Turing test, like, I can go talk to other people and I can have a very interesting conversation, and I don't really want to be duped by a computer anyway. But I do want like more scientific progress. I think that's how the world gets better. So not as a test of AGI, but as a test of tremendous value for the world. I think that's a good one.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Sam and Rachel. Great honor meeting you two today. My name is Sarah. So I have been working as a product manager in tech industries for a couple years now. So ever since ChatGPT actually made public, I was quite shaken up by it. And I'm seeing like AI developing so fast. And I would like to ask, like, what advice would you give to like product managers like us who are not as technically inclined as developers if we want to make an impact in the field of AI? Is there any like specific areas or skills you believe is necessary for us to focus on to make this impact? Yeah.
Sam probably has better answers than I do, but I think we've barely scratched the surface of what can be done with these models, and there's so much opportunity for technical people and non-technical people. I encourage you to explore, try different things.
Yeah, I think we still have not updated our intuition for like just how much we've all just gained in terms of like superpowers and how much more is coming. And you don't have to be technical to use these models. I think one of the reasons that ChatGPT is appealing to people is you can use it in natural language. So it's super, super accessible, maybe more accessible than any technology before. So anybody can jump in, and I certainly recommend it.
Yeah, I do agree, like we as users, it's very easy because it's natural language. But as like product manager who want to like pipe on the development of it, like do we actually need to learn anything? Or like what kind of skills or what kind of advice do you have?
I mean, if you want to like learn how to go train GPT-5, that's like pretty hard and technical. Yeah. But if you want to go use this to like revolutionize any other product, I think any product manager can go do that with almost no technical knowledge in a really deep way.
Understand, yeah, thank you.
Hey, Sam Nagarajan here. I'm running a company, and we are giving the integrated solution for AI, ML, as well as IoT, all three together. And my question here is, what is your visibility on the responsive AI with generative AI? Because there's going to be a very big conflicts, even if you travel, because I came to understand you travel so many countries, so many regulatory factors, they are considering it. The responsive the AI is supposed to be integrated with generative AI, so it can potentially make some value for the humans. Thanks.
The question was, what is the conflict between?
Yeah, what kind of thresholds to match with generative AI with responsive AI?
Responsive or responsive?
Responsive, yeah.
I don't know what responsive AI is.
Responsive, like human things, right? Because we are also touching the human factors and where we can able to sit it so that we don't want to affect the humans because it's a part of the world anyway.
we can do a pretty good job of aligning an AI to behave in any particular way, technically speaking. The question is how we're going, and we talked about this a lot now, which is, it's super important, but how are we going to decide what the values of AI should be? So generative AI, I personally think it's like a dumb term because most of what people use this, or a lot of what people use this for, is not generativeness at all. It just means like, it's finally the AI people always wanted. It's like actual general purpose, can do some limited new knowledge creation, very limited. And the question is, how are we going to agree on what limits we place on that? Given
because everything's
power?
data, right? Everything's data now. Even the humans is the data.
Sure.
We are working on
Sure.
this. And where you want to sit in, because some of the data is private data is as public data, because when you are touching the private, then only all the things will change.
Yeah, but it's in terms of the limits, it's like a socio-political question, not a technical one.
Understand. Thanks.
Hi, Sam. Sorry about this, but thanks, Sam. I do need to keep the time. Sam has to take a flight later on. Let's give Sam, Hannah, and Rachel a good Singapore applause.
Thank you.
Some housekeeping messages. If you have a green tag, please stay in the room. If you have a purple tag, you can leave the room while we take Sam to his next destination. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.